if you want to form a lifestyle based on health, then the two core principles, so the two very important things at the center of your life, should be focusing on healthy food and caring about what food you eat. And secondly, as you can see, cycling. So yes, I recommend exercise, but I don't call it exercise. I call it having fun while moving your body. And the best way to do this is through cycling. So if you want to lose weight, and if you've lost weight already and you want to maintain staying lean and healthy, then I recommend you get a bicycle. But if you're new to cycling, and well, firstly, cycling is the best way to move your body to sustainably lose weight because it's low impact, so low chance of injury, and it's fun. And it's not meant to be exercise. When you call things exercise, that essentially sounds like torture. Whereas cycling, it's actually fun to move your body and to do it hours, many hours in a week if you have the time to do that. But if you're new to cycling, quite often I always get, well, it's not very comfortable. And I remember when I first started cycling many years ago now, many hundreds of thousands of miles ago, I remember having discomfort. My bum would get sore, my hands would get sore in my hand, I get sore in my wrist, and I get sore in my shoulders, maybe get sore in my neck, all the usual places. So it's not unusual to find discomfort when you first start cycling. So this is my road bike. Okay, so this is a road bike that I would recommend for someone who is then experienced in cycling. So this is a carbon fiber frame. Okay, this is a carbon fiber frame, weighs about 6.8 kilos, and it's rim brake. Okay, so it's rim brake. So this is a machine that you would get if you were, okay, so I'll just show you here, hopefully you can see it. So this is a machine that you'd get if you want performance. Okay, so if you want to go fast and enjoy that feeling of performance on the road, which is personally what I find is the most enjoyable. And yeah, there's time for mountain biking, but most of your riding will be focused on the road, because that's where you'll get, I think you get the most back from the effort you put in. So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can minimize this worry of being, essentially it can get so painful while riding a bike if it's not set up properly, if you knew that it feels like you're getting injured. And you do that through getting the first bike which you should get, which is one of these, or a bike like this. So this is a metal frame, so this is an aluminium frame. So if you're new to cycling, you want to get your first bike, it's a bit like this. So yes, there are bits missing. So for example, the saddle's on my other bike, and yes, it's missing pedals at the moment, and also on the other side it's missing the other crank, because that's a power meter crank, and that's on the other bike. So what you need to get is something like this, so metal frame. And what you're going to do is, once you've got all the bits, okay, you're going to want to get, just put that there, one of these. Okay, so hopefully you can see that. This is a turbo trainer, i.e. the implement of torture. So these, you can get very expensive one, you can get very cheap one, and what you do is you take your bike and you remove, okay, what you do is you remove this quick release and you put in a quick release that goes with the turbo trainer. And what that allows you to do is put the rear back of the bike on here. So I'm going to actually pause the video and I'm going to set it up and show you how it'll look like. This is how you fit the wheel on. So essentially it can be a bit fiddly, but once you've changed the skewers, quickly skewer, it goes in like this, and then you you tighten this up. Say this is old, so it's all bit stiff. But essentially, you tighten that up, and then the turbo trainer here gives, so as this is spinning, you turn this on like that, and it goes against this little barrel, and this little barrel in there spins, and that gives you resistance. So, and then you can use your gears to, so as you're cycling, you're pedaling, you can use your gears like that. See me changing them? So you give, look at that, pretty well indexed, not too badly indexed. So there you go. So there's no brakes, so I have to, there you go. So there you go. So it's really easy to set up, and yeah, these types here, they can be quite noisy, but I think if you get, this is an oil, like an oil one, so there's like oil in there that gives resistance, but you can get ones that are just fans where it's just, they're quite noisy in there. So that's something to bear in mind. But yeah, super easy to set up, and you don't need to go to the gym to use a static bike in the gym. You can just have this, in your garage or in a spare room. I've seen people set these up in a spare room. So yeah, this was what it would sort of look like when you got it set up. And yeah, not carbon fiber, but metal like this. So as you can see, there's no brakes, so I can pull that all the way in. So the brakes would go in there, and so that would be where the front brake would go, and the rear brake would go there. So there you go. And I'd have pedals here, and on this side I'd put my other crank would go here like this. Now that you've got your bike set up on the turbo trainer, so this is the normal quick release. So a normal quick release is not going to work with this, because what you do is, if you've got a quick release that looks like that, I'll probably show you a close up in a moment, but essentially you need to swap it out with a quick release that fits the turbo trainer, and that usually will come with the turbo trainer. So this is the quick release skewer that you would use in the bike when you got it on the turbo. Okay, so it's different to the normal one that would come with the bike. So essentially it's got it's flatter at the end, so you can see there. Yep, that's working, focusing great, isn't it? Yeah, so it's flatter, see, at the end, and then here, so like that, as opposed to the one that comes with the wheel, which is like this. So you can see that that's not going to, firstly that's plastic, so that's not going to fit, see? And also you might be wondering, why have I got these clothes hangers in the shot? It looks ugly. Well, they're absolutely covered in ladybirds, so I was planning to move them, but I'm not, because I don't want to disturb ladybirds. These are the ladybirds or ladybugs I was talking about. So there's loads of them. There's some there, but there's dozens of them. You can see them there, and they're all over it, which is good. There's some life there. So that's why I didn't want to move it. So this is essentially the equivalent of what you might get in a gym. So you have a static bike in a gym. So this, I think, is a great idea when you're new to cycling and you want to find the best position for you and find what's comfortable. So you don't need to get an expensive turbo trainer. You can get them secondhand off eBay. So this one is a Tax. So it's spelled TACX. That's the company. And I think this one's called a Neo, and it cost me I think at the time it was quite expensive because I think it had Bluetooth maybe enabled, but you can get them easily for, I'm in the UK, so £200 will be fine. Maybe if you live in America, again, about $250. It doesn't need to be expensive, okay? So this allows you to pedal the bike, okay, like this. So it's off the floor and you can pedal, and the turbo trainer will give you a little bit of resistance. So in this setup that I have on here, again, aluminium frame. So with my drive chain, as they call it, so this drive chain here, so this is 105. So I've got Shimano 105. So this is 105. This is actually Tiagra, Shimano Tiagra. So that's just a really cheap, but it works. Okay, so this doesn't need to be expensive either. So it's cheap, but it works fine. Okay, so this is a 11 gears on the back and 2 on the front. And I don't actually have any brakes set up with this bike. Okay, so it doesn't have, so this is a rim brake bike, but it doesn't have set up for brakes. And the reason is I use this bike as my turbo trainer in the winter when it's too dangerous to ride outside. I use this as a backup when I can't ride outside. And I've got a bottle cage there. So this just has gears on it, and I set all this up myself, put this all together myself. So I've only got the gears working, which is fine. Okay, that's fine if you want to just have it in the garage, for example. But obviously you can't go riding out without brakes. So yeah, for me, I realized that this doesn't have brakes, so I'm never going to go out and ride and just grab it, because this is my second bike and I just know that I'm never going to ride outside. But if you only have one bike, then yes, you need to set it up with brakes as well. So I don't recommend riding on a carbon framed bicycle on one of these turbo trainers, because the way that they lay up carbon fibers, essentially the direction in which they make the molds of the carbon fiber, it's made just for being strong in certain directions. So whereas aluminium like this, it's a strong basically in every direction. So the torque that's going to go through the rear triangle here, so you got the rear triangle and the front triangle, this is fine. Okay, this is fine for turbo trainer. I know I don't recommend doing sprints, all out sprints, okay, on the turbo trainer, regardless of the material. I don't think that's a good idea. These are good just for getting the miles in. So carbon fiber, the rear triangle, it's made just for, the direction in which you'll be pedaling. Whereas with this, it's okay. Okay, you can ride metal. So aluminium works, whereas carbon fiber, not a good idea. Okay. Learn from other people's mistakes, okay? So what you can do with this is you can, as long as yes, that's another thing. The bicycle is essentially infinitely adjustable, okay? So no, we're not born to ride bicycles, but we make bicycles for human beings, okay? So bicycles are made for human beings, whereas we're not made for bikes, but bikes are made for us. So we can infinitely adjust our bicycles. So what you want to do is not get an integrated stem and handlebar. So you see now today, you get a stem and a handlebar and it's all in one, and you can't change the length of your stem without getting a whole new handlebar. So I recommend getting a separate bar and stem. And also, when you're looking to get your first bike, the fork here comes up through the frame here, and your stem attaches onto the end of the fork. So if you're going to get your first bike, I would recommend getting it with a little bit of the fork left on top, which means you're going to need a long bung, okay, a long bung in your fork, the end of your fork, the stem of your fork. And that's because the way that you tighten up the screws on the stem means that if there's not a bung inside, you can cause, from the pressure of tightening up the stem, you can crack the fork, okay? So you want a long bung that allows you to tighten these screws without worrying about cracking the fork inside. So you just want a little bit of play, and that allows you just to move the stem up and down and increase the spaces underneath. And also, you don't need to get expensive gear if this is your first bike. So I recommend you can get maybe 2 or 3 different lengths of stem. So if you look, most manufacturers, they'll give you what size frame you should have for your height. So for example, for me, I'm 5'11". So this is a Giant. So this is made by a company called Giant. So in that range, the range of size frames they give for someone who's my height, they actually give quite a few frames. So most bicycle manufacturers, it's basically small, medium, large, and then you have extra small, maybe extra large. So extra small to extra large. But Giant actually offer a medium large, and a large. But most bike manufacturers will just say medium and large. So for me, I'm in that ballpark. So I can actually ride a small, which is a 54 centimeter frame. So I can get away with that at 5'11". And I also would fit a 55 centimeter frame, and also a 56 centimeter frame might be a little bit too big for me, but I probably could get away with that. So that would be a size large. And then, yes, if you're shorter and you maybe like, you're 5'4", 5'3", then you're going to be going down to the small size frame. So if you're a man or a woman, and bicycle manufacturers now offer sizes for women as well. It's not just a men orientated sport. You can get bicycles for women, but essentially it's the angle of the different angle of the frame. I'm not going to go into talking about the angles of the seat tube and whatnot. Just look for the size of the frame. Look at the recommended size for your height. Generally they're good. So all major manufacturers, they give general sizes. Like Giant give their size range, and so I recommend Giant's fine. Giant's good. Also, other brands that I recommend that you could look to get a second-hand bike like this off eBay, for example. So Specialized is good as well. So Giant, Specialized, also the old Trek bikes. So if you look for a second-hand cheap bike on eBay, look for your size, aluminium, look for a group set gears. Shimano 105 is okay. And I always say that's just the go-to. Shimano 105 works fine. Again, it's cheap now. You don't need electronic gears. You can get a really good bike secondhand. So that's the frame. And then you can get different length stems. So if you're getting discomfort at the front of the frame, the front of the bike, what you can do is, so you set your bike up, put it on the turbo trainer, get on your bike, start riding. And I'll insert a clip now here of me riding on my bike, and you can see that when I'm riding, my leg isn't overextended. So essentially, if you imagine this is my knee here, when I'm cycling, my leg doesn't completely straighten. So what you want to do is to make sure that you're not getting knee or hip pain or back pain, is have your saddle, it's best to have your saddle lower than it is too high. Okay, so a saddle too low is better than a saddle too high. So you want to make sure that if you set up a camera, video yourself on your bike. So you don't want to have your hips rocking side to side. Okay, so when you're cycling, you don't want to be going like this. Okay, so if your bum's going side to side on rocking side to side, it means your legs overextending and your hips dropping. So you still want to have a bit of bend in your leg. So when your leg gets down to the bottom of the stroke, okay. So when your leg gets down to the bottom of the stroke, you don't want it completely straight. You still want a bit of bend. Okay. Woohoo! Freedom! And then at the front of the bike, if you're getting discomfort at the front, what you can do is, if you shorten the length of your stem, and also move your saddle backwards slightly and drop your saddle height down. So if you want to go really fast and aggressive, generally you move your saddle a bit forward and you have a longer stem, and you drop your stem a bit lower. But essentially the most aero position is having elbows at 45 degrees like this. So not down like that and not up like that, but like that. Okay. And a flat back. That's the most aerodynamic. But if you just want to ride, then yes, just comfortable, elbows slightly bent. Okay, so not completely straight, because that's not a good idea, and not riding at 90 degrees. You just want to have a slight bend, and you want to have a firm but gentle hold of the bar. And if you, depends which country you're riding in, but essentially I recommend always having a hand near the front brake. So if that's your right hand that covers the front brake, or your left hand that covers the front brake. So in the UK, it's the right hand. So it's like a motorbike in the UK, it's the right hand that covers the brake. So if you put your saddle back a little bit, drop the height of your saddle, and also shorten the length of your stem. And if you've got room, like I said before, put some spaces underneath and raise the stem. And yes, also to add, when you're making these changes, it's not a good idea to make drastic changes. So from one ride to the next, if you change, for example, you lower your seat post maybe 3 or 4 millimeters at a time. So not just dropping it 10 centimeters. Okay, so you lower your seat post maybe 3 or 4 millimeters. You move your seat back 3 or 4 millimeters. And obviously, yeah, with the stems, usually they change in 10 millimeter increments, but you can find, so if this was I think on this bike, I have 130 millimeter stem. I would go, sometimes they can find 125, but yeah, usually these are 10 millimeters increments, which is, that's okay because it's the front of the bike. Whereas because you have more of a smaller range in terms of how much your knee is bending, the increments of change around the saddle should be a bit smaller, rather than the front it can be a bit bigger, because you've got the whole range of your back, okay, and your arms, and you've got a lot more adjustment in that range at the front. And also another thing to add is you can get stems that have different angles. So this is I think a 17-degree angle stem with this one, with this stem. So essentially you can get stems that are more or less. So I think most stems come usually about 4 or 6 or 8 degree angles, whereas this is, I think, 17. So it's a very aggressive stem. So essentially it looks almost flat with the floor, whereas most, you can get stems that are, they look almost vertical essentially, and again that brings you up and back. And yeah, you can, with these bikes as well, bike like this that's rim brake and mechanical, if you look at videos online now, I've got videos showing you how to service a bike. So this has got internally routed cables. I've got a video showing doing internal routing of cables. It's really easy to do yourself. And yeah, so rim brake mechanical like this is good. So yeah, I've just put this clip in because I needed to say, it's all about fine adjustments. So do a ride, see if that changes, see if that changes. Does it more comfortable? Just change it again. But generally that's what you want to do if you want to increase your comfort, is saddle back and down, shorten the stem, and raise the handlebars up. So you're essentially going into a lot more relaxed position. So you're coming up and back, and your saddle is going backwards. So you're going to move your saddle back in the rails and lower, what do you call it? Lower your saddle. Okay, I forgot what you call that. Seat tube. And also one thing to look out for is with the Giants, they have integrated seat posts, the carbon fiber ones. So look for a bike that doesn't have the integrated seat post, okay, that has a seat post. And yeah, make sure your tires pumped up high pressure when you're on the turbo trainer. You can get a cheap tire that's specifically for turbo training, and also if you get a bike computer with a power meter, you can check what power you're doing, what cadence you're doing. So yeah, I hope you enjoy the video. Like and subscribe. If you want any more information on cycling and getting fit and what you should eat and whatnot, I'm here to help. If you want personalized coaching, I've put an email in the description. And yeah, so this is simple way to get your bike fit right. Anyway, thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.